And I'm also going to take you a little bit into the healthcare world toward the end of my talk, when I sort of give you a peek at what a lot of your fellow citizens are going through when they encounter the healthcare system. I'm going to take this down and hold it, because I know I'm going to move around. So this quote really sums up my story, and I think the story of American healthcare. It's by Pam Popper. If you don't know Pam, jot her name down. She's a doctor that lives in Columbus, Ohio. She's fantastic. A naturopathic doctor, yes. She lives in Columbus, Ohio. She runs the Wellness Forum. Fantastic resource for information. And she says, we have a collision in healthcare between people who don't know they can get well and healthcare providers who don't know how to make them well. And let me tell you, I was one of those people who didn't know I could get well, and I have been a healthcare provider who didn't know how to make people well. I've stood in both those sets of shoes. And so that's why I love this quote so much. It really sums it up. So I'm going to skip the first few decades of my life, and I'm going to take you right to 2001, 2002. It's toward the end of 2001. And yeah, that's me. That was me. This was right before we moved to Austin. This was in one of my good friend's front yards in Germantown, Tennessee. And I'm holding two of her children, and that's my son standing beside me. And that was at my heaviest. And I was over 200 pounds. I was squeezing into size 18 shorts. You know, I didn't want to cross that line into the big gals department, but boy, I was sure headed there. And this was the product of a lifetime of eating that got progressively worse, particularly after I left home. And went off to college and got to eat whatever I wanted to. Mm-hmm. And because my taste buds had been formulated to eat sugar, salt, and fat, that's what I ate a lot of. And I really particularly loved dairy. That was my big nemesis. I ate a lot of yogurt, ice cream. In fact, my college roommate likes to tell the story about how when I was in college, she had a half-gallon container of Breyer's mint chocolate chip, which was my absolute favorite, in the freezer. And I sat down during finals week and ate the whole thing and left a $5 bill in the freezer for her. That's a food addict, people. Would you agree? Yeah. So all those years of eating cheese, full-fat dairy, ice cream, yogurt, on top of all the other stuff, packed the pounds on me. And those of you who are, you've done the reading or heard the talks by other physicians and other healthcare practitioners, you know that dairy is designed to grow a baby cow into a full-grown cow. And it was growing me into a full-grown cow, that's for sure. So anyway, this was me in 2001. 2002, we moved to this place called Austin, Texas. And man, beautiful city, wonderful place to live. People were out, walking and running and biking and moving around. And in Arkansas, nobody did that. Nobody in that little town that I lived in. You never saw people on a bicycle. You certainly never saw them walking on the road. Never. So we moved to Austin, and wow, that was a real eye-opener. And then I walk into the H-E-B. It's not H-E-B, it's the H-E-B. And I could not believe all the gorgeous fresh produce. Beautiful. Just aisles and aisles of it. I was really blown away. Now, I grew up knowing, my mother didn't feed me ice cream, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I knew about fruits and vegetables, and I had some of those on my plate. I had a taste for those. I just sort of let them slip out. But when I got to Austin, Texas, and all these wonderful, vibrant people and all these fresh fruits and vegetables, I started to push more of this into my diet. I started to get a little more active. So I joined this place called Curves. Is Curves are they still around? I don't know. But I started going to curves, and I started eating more fruits and vegetables, and you know, that combination, it'll slim you down, right? It's not rocket science. But, this is the big but, it was still there. I did not completely crowd these things out of my diet. There was still, I never was a big red meat eater, but that's the dairy. Pork, because my husband's from Kentucky, and man, they like everything fried. It's a starch, it's a fried meat, maybe a little pile of green beans, and everything covered with gravy, right? So, and I cooked for him. That's how I put on my weight after I got married. That's when I really packed it on too. And chicken, you know, there's chicken. If we're Americans, it's chicken every meal. Chicken, chicken, chicken. In the hospital, they're serving chicken all the time. Every time they come up and they ask me, well, you know, can your patient have chicken? Can your patient eat chicken? And I'm like, no, they can't. Definitely allergic. So anyway, I still had these animal products on my plate. So I was able to make some progress. And this was me when I went off to nursing school. So I got healthier and I got more energetic. My husband wound up in Brackenridge on the 8th floor on the trauma unit, and I got to see what nurses do for patients. And I thought, gosh, I think I might want to go to nursing school, because they really can help people. I mean, they're really important. We have some nurses in the room today, and who have been a very important part of my journey. And so anyway, you can see I trimmed down, went off to nursing school, and started learning about health and nutrition as a nurse. Here I am at one of our computers, studying my brains out. This is my study group. Betsy Anilak is here in the room today, and Betsy was one of my study buddies from nursing school. We've nursed together all the way through. Helen Bassey, who's over here. Helen she precepted me when I was a new nurse at Brackenridge Hospital. Very, very important part of my life, and I call her the best nurse in the city. She really is. She's fantastic. Any student lucky enough to have her, I mean, it's golden. So anyway, in nursing school, I hear a lot of doctors say they only get an hour of of nutrition education when they're in school, or they don't get anything at all. Nurses actually do get nutrition education. We do have a class that focuses on nutrition. And we learn about how to help patients recover their health through nutrition. But a lot of what we get is just sort of the standard American diet, or it's the American Heart Association diet, or the American Diabetes Association diet, those sorts of things. And they're not really particularly making people healthy. They'll bring them to a certain point of health, but they won't get them all the way there. We spend a lot of time in nursing school. I'm going to torture the nurses that are in here, writing nursing care plans. And nursing, so we learn about nutrition related to nursing diagnoses, and we learn about people who are underweight and what might be causing those things and what we need to do to help them out. People who have nutrition that's imbalanced because they're taking in more calories than their body requires, and what we might do for them. So we do study nutrition in a way, but as you'll see, it wasn't enough to save me from becoming sick. All that knowledge that I had, that schooling that I got, didn't save me. Interestingly enough, here's Betsy again. Here we are in nursing school, and we had to do a project, and so what did we choose to do our project on? Nutrition. Because we knew the importance of nutrition. So we went to a preschool over in Circle C. We had this delightful group of kids, and we taught them about nutrition. And we did a little game we played with them where they had to reach into the bag and feel the vegetable, what was in there, and figure out what it was and tell us what it was. And we dressed them up in cute little outfits. I'm just gonna walk over here. This guy's got the muscles, so representing strong bones and muscles, health. Actually, she had a little bone down the side of her leg. She was our little muscle person. And we were teaching them all about nutrition and the different foods they should and shouldn't eat. Now I'm going to point out something interesting about this picture. What am I teaching them about?
Oh my gosh.
Is it non-dairy yogurt? No, it is not. No, it is not. Yeah, it's not a health food. I tell my patients that all the time now. Yogurt is not a health food. maybe if you ferment it in a camel bladder going across the desert, maybe it's a health food. I don't know. I'd have to look into that. But that's not health food. Yet, as a nurse, I'm a nursing student here, this is what I'm teaching children. Shame on me. So, when I became a nurse, one of the things I discovered up on the unit was the break room. And if you think nurses eat healthfully, some of us do, but as a general rule, and it's not just nurses, it's doctors, clinical assistants, respiratory therapists, the whole list, the food that they're putting out in the break room and into their bodies in the course of a shift to try to fuel them to get through a shift is pathetic. And it's a lot of pizza and donuts. And we have, there was a health practitioner who shall remain nameless at Hayes Hospital in Kyle who had a specialty called candied bacon. Ever heard of that? Yeah, so that was actually in the emergency department, and that's what they were putting out, where we're pumping people's chests and treating them for coronary artery disease. And yet, you step back behind the scenes and they're serving candied bacon. So, in the midst of all of this marvelous healthcare and nursing career that I'd embarked on, and the stress, the junk food in the break room, I was starting to pick up a little more weight. Probably gained 25 pounds just working on the floor. And that's pretty typical, I think. I see some nodding heads from the nurses in the room. Well, lo and behold, one day I'm up on the unit and I go into the telemetry room. And if that's not a word you're familiar with, that's the room where all the monitors are. And I bump into this nurse who was up there watching telly. She worked in the ICU. Kayash, you met earlier. And she, Yeah, your hair is longer now. So she was sitting in our telemetry room. She was watching all the monitors here. I think I came in to pick up a rhythm strip on one of my patients or something. I don't know, maybe I don't know if I was relieving you for lunch or something was going on. Anyway, and she's sitting there, and I will never forget this. She's eating a bag of green beans. Like, she's got a bag of raw green beans, and she's sitting there eating them. I'm like, and I'd noticed that she had dropped weight. She looked fantastic. I said, so Kaya, what have you been doing? And she started talking to me about eating this plant-based diet, how she was working on a...
What year was it?
I'd have to take a guess at that. It was right before you left.
2011 or 12.
Maybe 11 or 12, yeah. So she starts telling me she's eating this plant-based diet, and she's eating raw green beans, and you're working on a frozen shoulder. Yeah. Yeah, so she wasn't able to work in the ICU because her shoulder had locked up, and she was using green beans. No, we have steroid injections for that. We have oral steroids we'll put you on for that. We have all kinds of things in medicine that we'll do for that. But green beans, really? So literally, this is what I felt like listening to her, and I'm like, oh, sure, yeah, you're gonna fix your frozen shoulder with green beans. Okay, carry on. But she did look fantastic. So somehow that got filed away. My brain tucked that away, and so a couple years later, that all bubbled back up to the surface. And so now I'm going to tell you about where my real education began as a nurse. And it began in the middle of the night. We were at a friend's house, visiting out in Wimberley. And I woke up in the middle of the night with my heart pounding out of my chest. I had never felt anything like that. And I'm going to ask you all to do one thing for me. So this is how my heart normally beats. I want you all to beat your heart like this. This is how my heart was beating. This is how my heart normally beats. And now I want you to do this. Pound your chest. That's what I felt. I had a clock by the bedside, and I took my own pulse. I can do that. Taught me how to do that in nursing school. 220 beats a minute. Yeah, Helen just dropped her head. Kaya. The nurses in the room know what that's. We like to say you're not perfusing your tissues well. In other words, the blood flow to the brain is not great at that point, which is probably why I tried to stand up out of the bed to walk. I don't know what I was even thinking at that point. I felt like I needed to get up out of the bed, and I nearly dropped over. Because when your heart is pounding that fast, you can't pump blood to your brain. So I got back into the bed and laid down, and my first thought was, oh my God, I'm having a heart attack. And then I thought, no, this is not a symptom of a heart attack. And I really honestly didn't know what to do except just lay there and hope it would get better. And fortunately it did. It took about 2 hours, and I just laid there in the dark and counted my pulse for 2 hours until it came back down. That's called supraventricular tachycardia. It was not the first sign that I had that things were going off the rails. Because one thing I've learned is that nature, it starts throwing you signs. And any of you that have been through a healthcare crisis know you got early signals. It didn't just happen all at once. So I've been having heart palpitations on the unit. I've been having like some sweats, breaking into a sweat just all of a sudden. Not feeling myself. I'm generally a very upbeat, happy person, and I was really irritable, short-tempered, couldn't sleep, and I chalked it all up to menopause. I thought, well, hey, I'm coming up on 50. It's got to be that. Well, had the palpitations, developed rapid weight loss. I lost 10 pounds in a month, not trying. I was ravenously hungry. I was eating like crazy. Had the soaking sweats, voracious hunger, trouble sleeping, irritable. And when I started to put the pieces together, I realized I think there's something off with my thyroid. We have thyroid disease in my family. My sister's had her thyroid ablated. My mother is on medication for hypothyroidism. So I stopped one of our cardiologists in the hallway and I said, Dr. Watkins, I need to come visit you. I need to have labs drawn. He said, sure, just make an appointment. And I knew exactly what it was. I just needed the lab work to tell me what I already knew. So when I got my lab work back, normal thyroid stimulating hormone is 0.4 to 4.0. And my thyroid stimulating hormone was 0.02, practically non-existent. Now I'm going to take a little sidestep here and I won't bog you down with a lot of medical jargon, but thyroid stimulating hormone, it's created in a little gland in the brain called the pituitary gland. And it's designed to stimulate your your thyroid, to tell your thyroid to produce certain hormones that basically run the metabolic functions in your body. If your thyroid's off base, nothing really works well. It's the thyroid, which sits right here, is important for controlling your metabolism. So because my thyroid was so hyperactive, and that's what my diagnosis ultimately was hyperthyroidism, my thyroid was already working so hard that I didn't need any thyroid stimulating hormone. That's why my level was so low. And that's the key lab that'll tell you your thyroid, you've gone hyperthyroid. So hyperthyroidism is an autoimmune disease. And when I reflect back now, and I've done a lot of reflection on this, and wow, the puzzle pieces that I've put together just blow my mind. Autoimmune disease is rampant in my family. But I didn't know that having one autoimmune disease puts you at risk or your children at risk for an autoimmune disease. There are 100 known autoimmune diseases, and some of them are really devastating because autoimmune means that your body's immune system is attacking itself, and it can pick any tissue that it wants to. In my case, it just happened to be my thyroid. However, interestingly enough, hyperthyroidism was not my first encounter with autoimmune disease. I just didn't know it because I wasn't a nurse back then. So these are some of the diseases. I had an incidence of glomerulonephritis back in about 2004, where on the backside of a viral infection, my body decided to turn around and attack my kidneys. And so I, to this day, still have a little bit of blood and a little bit of protein that leaks into my urine because my kidney's filtration device, that little net, is damaged. And it was damaged because my body decided to turn around my immune system and attack my kidneys. My mother has psoriasis. Our son, when he was 7, suddenly developed alopecia areata. That is where, in the most severe cases, every hair on your body is gone. In our son's case, he started losing patches of his hair, and he lost his eyebrows and eyelashes. And I've got his 2nd grade picture, and he's there with no eyebrows and no eyelashes. And it resolved, interestingly enough. But it's autoimmune disease again. I had this lovely, lovely, lovely condition called iritis. And it's an autoimmune disease that attacks the iris of the eyes. So it can go after any tissue that it wants to. Your body will turn around and pick a target. And so periodically I would develop this awful, horrible, painful red eyeball. And I would go to the doctor and they'd give me steroid drops. And it would temporarily fix it. And then I would develop another case. I had flare after flare after flare. And interestingly enough, since I went plant-based, I have not had a single episode of iritis. Not a single one. And I had them regularly. I'm going to back up here and I want to talk about the most devastating autoimmune condition that has attacked my family. Give me just a minute. Our son has type 1 diabetes. That, to the day I die, will be my biggest regret. Because I didn't know. I pin it on the dairy, the cheese pizza, and all those things. I tell parents now, for God's sakes, keep your children away from dairy. Keep them away from it. I did not save our son. He's doing fine, but I really, really, really deeply regret not knowing that. So anyway, after I figured out that I had hyperthyroidism, I went to a traditional Western medicine doctor and an endocrinologist, which is what you do when you get a diagnosis like that. And he ran some more lab work, and we had a couple of visits in his office, and he told me that he wanted to put me on a medication to help control my hyperthyroidism. And I, being a good nurse, went and looked that medication up and discovered that it had some pretty horrific side effects, including liver damage and, here's the biggie, death. It didn't sound like such a good idea to me, and I thought, well, are there any other alternatives out there? Is there anything else I can do?
What was the medication?
It's called, yes.
Methimazole.
Methimazole, yeah. I think it's abbreviated TPA or
Tapazole is the treatment.
Tapazole, yeah. So they didn't offer me any other alternatives except having my thyroid killed off. That was the alternative to the medication. And again, knowing what I knew from the medical education that I had, I did not want to lose the gland that controlled my metabolism if I possibly could. Maybe I had to, I didn't know. But I wanted to find out. And so I started, searching through medical databases, looking up the science. What does it say? And I ran across articles like this. This is a little more recent, but this is the prevalence of hyperthyroidism according to the type of vegetarian diet. This stuff is out there in the literature. And it says things like this. Vegetarian diets may be associated with a low prevalence of autoimmune diseases, as observed in rural sub-Saharan Africans. What are they eating? Plants. How much autoimmune disease do they have? Not much. Should I eat like them? Probably a good idea to give it a try. So that's what I decided to do. And I thought, as somebody was telling me, Dr. Goldhammer, who runs True North Health Centers, he likes to say, what's it going to hurt? What could the side effects possibly be? It wasn't going to be liver damage and death, I can tell you that right now. So as a little sidebar, I'll tell you right now what I'm really interested in is a nutrition and fasting or fasting mimicking diets, the treatment of autoimmune disease. And this word right here, for any of us who are over 50, immunosenescence, this is the aging of the immune system. And so how we keep it healthy as we get older. Well, we're all getting older, so this is something we ought to all be paying attention to. And our healthcare providers should be talking to us about, because your immune system is so important. It can work for you, or it can work against you. And the power is in your hands on the end of your fork. So Kaya told me about a film, as in the course of our conversation, Forks Over Knives. And I don't know how that got tucked back away, but it sure did. Somehow it got, like my body knew this was coming down the road. And so I watched Forks Over Knives. And that's what really, really peeled my eyes wide open. The scales fell off. Mind was blown. Any of you that watched that film probably had that same experience. So I did. I switched over and started eating a plant-based diet. And I looked up, did a web search, because I didn't want to go back to that traditional Western medicine doctor. In the course of eating plants, and again, looking at the literature, it was also suggested that acupuncture would help. And so I sought out the help from an acupuncturist who put me on Chinese herbs. And it worked great, because within 2 weeks of starting these alternative therapies that Western medicine didn't tell me about, my symptoms vanished. Vanished. They were all gone. I don't know what those pills would have done, but I don't think it would have been that. So anyway, I looked up, went on the web and started looking for plant-based physicians. And lo and behold, I stumbled across the name of Linda Carney, whose office happens to be at the front of my neighborhood. Can it get any more convenient than that? She had been there all along. Yes. Give her a round of applause for sure. She had been there all along. I had seen her sign. I drove past it thousands of times. I never knew she was a plant-based physician. I certainly never knew that she was the person that I needed to be seeing. But I picked up the phone at that instant and made that appointment and got in to see her. And she has really been the person who has coached me through to health. So thank you, Linda. Thank you. She is a wealth of knowledge, and she is a true healer. There are 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil to one who is striking at the root. And Linda strikes at the root of disease and helps her patients recover their health. Traditional Western medicine, and there is a role for it, and I am still involved in it. There is a role for Western medicine. If I'm involved in a tractor trailer versus me and my smart car on I-35, don't give me broccoli. Don't give me broccoli. Get me to a trauma surgeon and let's get it fixed. But then give me the broccoli as I'm regaining my health. So anyway, but I am so heartened and encouraged to know that there are physicians and medical practitioners out there who are beginning to gain this knowledge and beginning to understand that there is a way that they can truly bring their patients back to health. This is what's got to happen in this country. And we've got to get people eating whole food, plant-based foods. And we've got to have people like Carol and Shanna and others of you here in the room who are teaching them how to prepare these wonderful foods, to make them tasty, teaching them cooking techniques that they may or may not know. I just want to say, since coming back from hyperthyroidism and disease, my life has changed dramatically. I've lost 70 pounds. I have more energy than I know what to do with. I'm back in school full-time in addition to working. I am headed for board certification in lifestyle medicine. They're now board certifying registered nurses. And I want to be one of the first ones in the country following in the footsteps of my doctor. And together, we can, all of us, have a role to play, whether you're talking to your friends and neighbors or family members individually or just role modeling for them, which is actually more powerful than trying to beat them over the head with it. I had to learn that the hard way. Because when you first, and you want to proselytize everybody when you start feeling good. But oftentimes it's just good enough, like Kaya did. She just sat there with her bag of green beans looking beautiful. Yeah, she had no idea the impact that she had on me. And you don't know that either, but you will touch people and you will help them. Every single one of you.
Yes.
So anyway, I've made some fantastic friends. A lot of you are here in the room today. Roz just ran a half marathon. Way to go, Roz. So many good friends that I've made through ATX Alive. And our beginning was September the 24th, 2015, a day that I will not forget, when we all sat together in a theater and watched Plant Pure Nation. And then some of us went out for coffee afterwards, and we talked about forming this group. And we started having meetings in Patty's husband's office. And if any of you were at that first meeting, stand up. Who was at that meeting? You did, so thank you. Thank you. You all have been here all along. So you have formed the heart and soul of a group that has just grown tremendously and has grown in influence and will continue to grow. I have no doubt about it. Chris, I want to say special. Chris was also a co-founder. He's down in Houston now. And if you've been to any of our other meetings, you may have heard his remarkable story of healing, which continues. You heard Joyce Hale. She was one of our speakers who talked about her autoimmune disease, lupus, was reversed with a plant-based diet. Fantastic story, so impactful. So at the tail end of my couple of minutes that I have left, I want to take just a quick look at the challenge for medicine in the 21st century, and it's dealing with chronic disease. And our leaders at the federal, state, and local levels are doing a poor job, and I'm going to show you an example of that. It's really it's got to be a grassroots movement. It's got to come from the individual level. We all have to take responsibility and help each other out. So this is what I see in the hospital: heart disease, cancer, stroke, hypertension, diabetes, dementia, kidney disease, pulmonary disease, autoimmune disease, arthritis, where everybody's getting their joints replaced, gastrointestinal disease. Patients either have one or several of these. This is the chronic disease that is dragging America down. And it's all due to an excess of unhealthy nutrients, sugar, salt, and fat primarily, and deficiencies in, not protein. It's not a protein deficiency, people. I've never had, no, I take that back. I think I had one patient with a true protein deficiency, and she was in stage 4 ovarian cancer, extremely cachectic. Yes, she had a protein deficiency. She could not keep calories down. Other people don't have that problem. They are deficient in fiber. We could fix a lot of things if that's what we weren't serving to our patients in the hospital. Betsy just rolled her eyes. Yep, that's what we see on the plate. Are we making them better?
No.
Nope. So apparently the attitude in healthcare is you don't have to give up bacon to be healthy. I really believe that's kind of the attitude. You don't have to give up bacon to be healthy because they're serving it to patients. So anyway, all that chronic disease, this is what we're headed for as a nation. And I like to say, if you want to make America great again, put them on plants.
Yeah.
That's the message I'd like to give to our president. If you want to make America great again, tell people to eat plants. Don't tell them to be scared of ISIS jumping out of the bushes. That's not what's coming for their kids. What's coming for the kids is heart disease, cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, stroke. That's what's coming for your kids and your grandkids. So put people on plants. Let some politician get up on television and talk about that. Then I'll be impressed. I'll love it. I'll vote for him every time. So anyway, projections of national health expenditures as a share of GDP, gross domestic product. So here we are in 2013, 17.2%, and look how it just climbs and climbs and climbs. This is your tax dollars. This is your personal dollars out of your retirement savings. 20% of GDP. And that's that chronic disease, all those diseases that I just listed. This is what's going to bankrupt America if we're not careful. We're on that path. Plants will turn it around, just like it turned it around for me. It can do it for an entire country. So how are your leaders addressing the chronic healthcare crisis? Well, they passed something last February called the Chronic Care Act of 2018. I just love this piece of legislation, let me tell you. They come up with this cute little acronym because that's what they like to do in Washington. So chronic stands for creating high quality results and outcomes necessary to improve chronic care. So they got a cute little acronym out of the word chronic. So what are they doing? This act is designed to improve the management of chronic disease, not the prevention. That's a key difference. This is what they're doing on the federal level for us. They're going to help us manage our chronic diseases by keeping people with chronic disease at home and out of the hospital. That sounds great, but you're still living at home with a chronic disease. How good do you really feel?
And your female relatives can't work because they got to stay home and take care of it.
That's right. That's exactly right. It has a huge impact on families. How are they helping us? Well, they're going to give us down here. I love this. They're going to give us telehealth. So now, a nurse's face can be beamed into your living room to check on how you're doing with your congestive heart failure. I hope they're telling those patients to eat plants because it is reversible. This is so the General Accounting Office is going to issue 3 new studies as a result of this wonderful Chronic Care Act. And the 3 new studies are going to do what? The feasibility of developing a new pay code, because we really need another pay code. Yeah, Linda's laughing because she's got to deal with the pay codes that are out there already. We're going to look at a medication synchronization program, not getting people off their medicines. We're going to synchronize it so when you go to the pharmacy to pick up one prescription, we're going to make sure you get all of them at the same time. Is this crazy to anybody else? And we're going to look at the impact of obesity drugs on patient health and spending. So they want to develop new obesity drugs. They don't want to treat obesity. Let's get some more drugs in the pipeline to treat it. How many of you heard of the Chronic Care Act? No, it's not making headlines. This is what's happening. This is what any of us in healthcare, this is what we're living, this is what we're seeing. This is the reality. And it's all happening under the radar, and you'll be paying for it, or your family members will be paying for it in poor health. So anyway, I'm just going to close with this slide. And I do want to say one other thing, because I don't want to leave on a downer note. But this is pretty much what they're saying to us as taxpayers and as recipients of health care. And it's not health care, it's sick care, by the way. Health reform, this is what they consider health reform. Open wide, no, I mean your wallet. And in going into retirement, your healthcare costs will be probably the biggest percentage of your expenditures. So is it worthwhile to take care of your health when you're younger? Or youngish, in my case? Yeah, I think so. This is one of my new mottos. The best way to predict your future is to create it. And that's what you guys did today, out there at the buffet. That's what you're doing every day when you're eating plants. You are creating your future. And you're doing it on the end of your fork. And it's the most powerful way that I've seen to do it. This is my story, and I think this is something that will resonate with all of you that have had changes through healthcare. We're born as what we are. We evolve into who we are, and I have had a heck of an evolution. And you all have been a big part of it. And I definitely believe you can have a slow first half, and that means right up to the age of 80, 90. I don't care how old you are. You can have a slow first half, and you can still win the race. You can still win the race. It is in your hands. You have the control. And that's the message that I want to leave you all with today. Anybody out there who's considering making this change, do it. Do it. You'll know in 2 weeks. You'll feel it. You'll feel it. Try it as an experiment. It's well worth your time, well worth your while. You can have a slow first half and still win the race. And you guys are all winners, and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Thank you for being a part of this group.
What was the name of the lifestyle certification again?
It is offered through the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. And it is board certification. They offer it for physicians, registered dietitians, and registered nurses. So that's going to happen in October in Orlando. So put that on your calendar. Say a little prayer for me, October 31st. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
I have questions for you. What are you studying? You're already an RN, but there's something else that you're studying for?
So I'm an associate's degree prepared RN. That means I went through 2 years of preparatory courses and then 2 years of nursing school. And in order to do board certification, I have to be bachelor's. I have to have a bachelor's of science in nursing. So that's what I'm in school for right now.
Very good, very good. Congratulations. We wish you success on that. No, I'm not done with you yet. and so what do I have in my hand?
Soy curls.
So, how many of you do not know what soy curls are? Okay, then good. I'm not wasting your time to let you know. This is just a soybean, a non-GMO soybean, and it's been cooked and put through the Play-Doh press to look like a chicken strip or a fajita strip, and then it's been dried. And this one happens to be frozen because I sell these and they keep longer. So you can buy this from me from $5. We have 3 of them in the freezer right now. You don't have to freeze them. They have a good shelf life, but anyway, I just keep them in the freezer. If you ate the black beans, there are soy curls in them. And soy curls, I have a question for Sarah. Will soy turn a boy into a girl?
I'm going to have to think about that. I'm not just going to... I don't know. I think the men over in Japan are not growing breasts. So no, I don't think so. I think you're good eating soy. You know, soy's a great health food. Whole soy, not soy isolate.
Very good, very good. And yeah, and so who knows what percentage of the calories in soy come from fat? How many, what percentage? Yes, ma'am.
50%.
Yes, very good, 54%, very good. And so this is a high-fat food. So if you know some teenagers who are desperate to gain weight, this will be great. And out on the front desk, there are some videos for sale, there are some books for sale, and there's one free recipe. So please take a picture of it. Don't take my free recipe thing. But there's a recipe thing for 2 of my favorite recipes with soy curls. I think one of them is sweet and sour soy curls, like sweet and sour pork, and the other is curried soy curls. Anyway, and so if you're interested in that, there's that. And speaking of young, skinny teenage boys who are desperate to gain weight and gain muscle. There's a movie coming out. Who knows what movie about vegan athletes is coming out? Who wants to tell us? Shout it out, Carol.
The Game Changers, coming out February 2019.
Yay! TheGameChangersMovie.com, is that the website? The Game Changers Movie? And so the Game Changers is designed to appeal to the young male. As a result, it has some F-bombs in it. There's got a little blood in it, a little fighting in it. And they're going to make a bleeped out version for school children. But it is going to very effectively win the heart and imagination and mind of young males because it's going to show how a plant-based diet fuels endurance and strength and how you can succeed as an athlete on a plant-based diet. No, not just succeed, win. Win. Yes, Carol?
It profiles their Olympians who are in the movie. The Tennessee Titans are profiled in the film. I don't know if you know their story. Fascinating. One of the players, I won't blow the secret. Bottom line, Tennessee Titans are in there. There's a number of Olympians in it who are gold medalists, who are plant-based eaters, and many members of our society that you may not even realize, athletes, who are in the plant-based space. So highly recommend when it comes out, please go watch it. It's cool.
Good. Very good. Yes. Does anyone else have any questions for Sarah? Yes, Patty.
When was it that you changed to the plant-based diet?
I changed over in about 2014.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep. Never going back. I tell people that all the time. Never going back. Because I know if I go back, my autoimmune disease it'll manifest itself one way or another. It may be the way I had it before. It may be something else. It's not a gamble I'm willing to take.
Miranda.
For your patients, what do you make sure they eat while they're in the hospital? Or is there any type of substitutions? Do you just watch them?
So the question is for my patients, what do I make sure they eat in the hospital? Oh, this is an ongoing battle. I've had a conversation with our dietary department. And what I hear back from them is we need to feed the patients what they like. First of all, it's a huge patient satisfier, right? So they're happy when they're eating those foods that make their dopamine, flow all through their body. So, I spend a lot of time, Betsy can tell you, I spend a lot of time, as much time as I'm able to spend at the bedside talking with my patients about diet. At a minimum, I talk to them about upping their fiber requirement. I don't beat patients over the head with it because that's futile. That's wasting their time and mine. But where they give me an opening, and I've had them before, if they give me an opening because they're ready to make a change, and sometimes that health crisis that I'm bearing witness to is that moment, I will step right in and lovingly give them every bit of information that I have. I have a terrific resource list from Linda. I gave it to a patient yesterday.
They're on the front table.
Yep. And so I can't always control what's on their plate while they're in the hospital. I do as much as I can. But I certainly give them the tools that they need to go home and make the changes. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any pushback from the physicians?
Do I have any pushback from the physicians? Interestingly enough, I don't.
Really? That's great.
I know. I'm in a really, yeah. I'm in a really unique situation though. I'm in a small, primarily surgical hospital. I don't have the level of chronic disease. Helen's in one of the big hospitals. Kaya, not anymore, yeah. But in fact, one of our surgeons, her mother reversed her rheumatoid arthritis eating a plant-based diet. Susan Auerston, my former nursing director who just retired, went plant-based, turned her on to Joel Furman. Because she was looking at me and going, what are you doing? And so she went plant-based. So there's a lot of interest, and there's certainly not, I don't get any pushback. I don't get any pushback at all. I'm really lucky that way. And you know what? If they push back, I'm just going to push back against, I'm going to show them the science. I'm going to show them the evidence. I'm going to say, you can't bring this to me and tell me it won't work when you haven't really looked at it. So, great question.
Can I bring up something?
Please.
Yeah, I have a primary care physician who's just,
You're up front.
I have a primary care physician who's up here at the ARC just a standard family care doctor. I told him that I'm plant-based, whole food, don't have any oil in my diet. My cholesterol levels are way below what they should be. And I asked him if I should be aware of anything, because it's below what below the level you're supposed to be, a minimum level. And he said, keep it up, you're doing great. So a lot of physicians know about it. It's just, I don't know how many are educated or not.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I don't think anybody ever, well, maybe you can die from a lack of cholesterol. I guess you can. It's part of every cell membrane, but I think it'd be hard to acquire a cholesterol deficiency because your body makes it.
Right, your body makes all the cholesterol that you need. If you're dying of a cholesterol deficiency or a protein deficiency, it means you're dying of a calorie deficiency. So, you know, people in concentration camps or who are being starved, yes, those people are deficient in more than just cholesterol and more than just protein. They're deficient in everything. But that's how you get a protein deficiency, is by starving. But otherwise, if you're eating sufficient calories for life, you're getting enough protein. Yes, Roz?
This isn't related to the talk, but since we're all under the same roof and we won't be together in a week from now, I thought we could all wish Dr. Carney a happy birthday.
And how old will you be?
59.
Great looking 59. That's a testament right there. Fantastic.
And so I have a question for each of you. Let's say you have a relative that you love very much, and that relative is in a hospital, and that hospital is feeding them standard American diet. What do you, the relative who knows the power of food, what do you do about this?
Bring them something yummy that's plant-based.
Yes, absolutely. And you want to do this respectfully. You want to approach the nurse that's caring for them and say, this person is on, a vegan diet, and they don't have the gut bacteria to digest the meat and the dairy. And so if they get a little bit of margarine, how will that harm them? Now, Sarah, isn't margarine plant-based?
Margarine is plant-based.
Except for every margarine on the planet, except the ones that are labeled vegan, which is, I can think of 2 of them, have dairy proteins in them. Why? Why would they put dairy proteins in a plant-based product? To make it addicting. How does it make it addicting? Casomorphines, that's right. It's going to hit that pleasure center, and the dopamine and the serotonin and the other feel-good chemicals are going to flood into the bloodstream and make it taste even better to the person than a straight plant-based margarine would. So there's a plant-based margarine. It's called Earth Balance, and it's 100% vegan, but it is 100% of its calories from oil. So it's not really healthy for you. It can increase your risk of cancer, but yes. And so people don't realize, the nurse feeding the person, the peas or the corn, they don't realize that if there's margarine in that, there's dairy protein in that, and that might make the person throw up or get diarrhea if they have been on a completely plant-based diet and suddenly now they're in the hospital. So yes, bring food, talk to the nurse about it, try not to sneak it in unless that nurse is so prejudiced against you that, and against the vegan diet that you have to. What do you think, Sarah? I better not put you on the spot because, you have to.
I never mind being put on the spot. No, I think that's fine. I think that's great advice. Definitely bring the food in. You're better off. By the way, if I ever wind up in the hospital, you're all welcome to bring me food. Please do. And what I can't eat, we'll put it in the break room and help the staff out.
Very good. Very good. Is there anyone here who has had some hair loss reversed, or who has had acne clear up, or who has had asthma reversed, or high cholesterol, or high blood pressure? Is there anybody here who's had any diseases reversed or experienced anything good from the plant-based diet that you would like to come up to the microphone and share with people about? Because we would love to hear your story too, briefly, if you'd like. Yes, Carol.
Done it before, I'll do it again. So, is it working? So for those of you I haven't met, I'm Carol, live in West Austin. I used to be morbidly obese, and I spent probably about 25 years on every diet imaginable. You name them, I've done them all to varying degrees of success. The biggest one I succeeded on was losing 106 pounds, but then I'd yo-yo back and forth. And then about 7.5 years ago, someone told me about the China study, the book, and I read it, and it took me on a journey of documentaries and other reading, and to cut a long story short, I went plant-based. I did a 180. I don't have an off switch, so I can't just cut out one item at a time and slowly migrate over. For me, I just had to go 100% overnight. So I did a 180 on September 12th, 2011, and I've never looked back. So I've been plant-based ever since. Now trying to encourage others in my family. I have an Instagram account that I dedicate to telling my story and sharing the science and information, recipes, fun stuff. It's freely there. Please help yourself to.
Is that Brit Voodie?
Brit Voodie, yes, BRITV as in vegetable, OODIE, Brit Voodie. So you're welcome to leverage that to whatever degree. PM me privately if you want some inspiration, support, motivation. I'm here to help anybody on their journey to whatever way you're taking your journey. For some of us, it's slower, faster. Whatever works for you, works for you. And finally, I'm a retired IT program project manager, forced into retirement, unfortunately, with a layoff. But I now spend some of my time working for a nonprofit, and we help educate people on the connection between the food that they eat and how it impacts their health and the world around us. And the primary focus is plant-based lifestyles. So again, if you're interested in that, I'd be happy to come out to your communities and share information. It's totally free for you. The recipient, all I need is a room with a projection unit, and I will happily come. We'll book something and get out there and share it with you. Happy to do it.
Which nonprofit?
Ethical Choices Program.
Is there anyone else who would like to tell us or ask us something? Yes, ma'am. Come on up. And I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
I've had psoriasis all my life. One of my earliest, very earliest little tiny memories was getting light treatments for it. And it wasn't too bad. I managed to control it most of my life, but every time there'd be a major stress in my life, it would get worse and be worse from then on. And most recently, last year, I was diagnosed with colon cancer, and it just exploded everywhere. But now, being on a plant-based diet, it's going away, and it's I'd probably say it's about 90% improved so far. And I'm expecting the rest of it to go away.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. There's a lot of hope to be found in the plant-based diet. Absolutely. I would like to just close with a little bit about hypothyroidism versus hyperthyroidism, which Sara suffered. So she told you that when she went to the doctor, they told her she had two options. Get the thyroid completely removed surgically and be on thyroid pills, replacement pills for the rest of your life, or get the thyroid killed completely with radioactive iodine and then be on thyroid pills for the rest of the life. Is that correct? That's what
They offered me the medicine that would...
Yes, but the medicine can only be prescribed for 1 year, which they probably didn't tell you.
No, they didn't tell me that.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, and the side effects were, I didn't look any further than the side effects. I was like,
Yeah.
it's not happening.
Yeah.
So then they talked to me about the fact that radioactive iodine.
So then they talked to me about the radioactive iodine. After I said, no thanks, I don't want to do the pill. They said, oh no, we have another solution for you. We're just going to kill your thyroid off. They didn't put it that way, but we're going to ablate your thyroid with radioactive iodine. So we're going to, you won't have a thyroid gland, a functioning thyroid gland anymore, and we'll put you on thyroid hormone replacement. And I just said, I'm just going to look and see if there's a better way to do it. Thank God I found it.
Could you hold the mic for me so that I can talk it with my hands? Okay, so here's a teeter-totter, and this is the thyroid gland, and this is TSH, which comes from the brain, made in the hypothalamus, stored in the pituitary, and the TSH, when it's rising, your thyroid is under-functioning. That's called hypothyroidism, O for low. When it is suppressed, as Sarah's was, your thyroid is over-functioning. That's called hyperthyroidism. And Sara was able to rebalance her teeter-totter and get her TSH normal and her thyroid functioning normal with a plant-based diet. Hyperthyroidism, or thyrotoxicosis, or Graves' disease, can be helped by the plant-based diet. Hypothyroidism is not going to be completely reversed by the plant-based diet. So there's an epidemic of hypothyroidism where the TSH is high unless you take thyroid medicine, and rebalance it. And so I don't want to give anyone the false impression that, and certainly she didn't give this, but I just don't want anyone to misunderstand about hypothyroidism, because even though that can be very much helped by a plant-based diet in terms of you need a lower dose and you'll feel better and you'll have thicker hair and your eyebrows will come back and many things will work better, stronger bones, all these things. A plant-based diet is good for you, but it's not going to get you off Synthroid or levothyroxine or whatever your thyroid replacement hormone is. So we don't want to give anyone the false hope that by going vegan they can ditch their thyroid medicine forever, because that is dangerous to do, because it can cause a type of a heart failure, because the thyroid is integral, it's important to everything in the body. So we don't want people just to say, woohoo, I'm eating carrots now, and ditch the levothyroxine. Okay, yes, Patty.
I wanted to give like you asked for people to give pointers or things they learned.
Yes,
I was thinking of one. So I thought of this good tip that I learned. I spent this Christmas time in December in Shanghai, China, and it's really hard to find plant-based food, there. There are a lot of meat eaters, a lot of meat. But I know I can get by with rice. I mean, I won't starve. I could just eat the rice, if there isn't anything else at the table. I know at least I can eat that. But I was out with my relatives one day, and I think we were in a Japanese restaurant. And I really wanted soup. I mean, it was cold. And but I know the broths. My husband said to me, they said it's vegan, but you really don't know, And my husband's like, it's okay. It's got a whole bunch of chemicals in it, It's not meat, but there's and I was like, I don't want to do that. But so we're at this restaurant, and I saw this noodle soup I really liked, and I noticed I told him, just put water in it. Just give me the noodles, give me some steamed vegetables on it, and some tofu. Just cut up the tofu and put the tofu blocks on there. And then once I got the soup to the table, I poured some they had soy sauce and vinegar at the table. And I just put soy sauce and vinegar in it, and there was my bowl of soup. And my husband tried it, and he was like, "Well, this is really good." And I'm like, "I could do this at home too." So that was, I just thought that was a good way to get soup, because usually a lot of Asian restaurants, it's hard to find even like a vegetarian broth.
Great idea.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any pointers?
Kylie, come on up.
This is not my pointer. This is from Doug Lyle over at True North. When you're interacting with people and they can be threatened by what you're doing. And so it's very, very important to take down that threat level by just saying the nice words, "It seems to be working for me."
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to be confrontational, and you just go, "Oh, well, this seems to be working for me." That's the only pointer I have.
Great.
Good one.
I've got one too. So I recently cut back a lot of salt and sugar from my diet. And what's helped me a lot is I keep a package of dates at all times with me. Like I have some in my purse right now. And I usually have a package in my car and at my house. So whenever I'm craving chocolate, which is a big one for me, I get a date instead, and they're delicious.
Awesome.
They kind of look like cockroaches, so you have to get over that. And then my other tip is for salt, get lemons, and instead of seasoning your food with salt, first of all, don't add any salt when you're cooking, because you really don't need to.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're done, if you want a little bit, that's up to you. But you can use miso paste, which is I think a lot healthier alternative. Or you can squeeze lemon juice on top, and that's like super delicious. You're getting a little bit of extra vitamin C, and it really kind of fills that void that you might feel at first. But after a while, when you cut out salt, you do start feeling better. You'll probably lose a little bit of weight because of all the water retention and things like that. I'm pregnant, by the way. I'm not like super bloated. But, you know, so it's just, those are some tips that I found really helpful. And then water saute, I have another tip. I have a lot of tips, and I'm a little nervous, so I'm probably talking weird. But another tip is to freeze some veggie stock. Like, save your vegetable scraps when you're cooking. Save it all, put it in a Ziploc bag or whatever in your freezer, and then cook it down, cook it really thin, get those silicone ice cube trays, and freeze your veggie stock. And then you can use that to saute whatever you're trying to cook. You can add it to your rice, you can add it to your quinoa, you can, you know, put it on pasta, whatever. But it's like, that's been a major thing for me and really helpful. Okay, thanks guys.
Awesome.
Come on up, Brian.
Drum roll, please. Here she comes.
Excuse me, sorry. Okay, well, Dr. Carney has been wanting me to do this for a long time, so I'm going to do it today. I'm going to give you just a quick testimonial about how a plant-based diet has helped improve my health. And so I want to say that today I ran a half marathon, and I'm very proud of myself. And like Dr. Carney is about to turn 59, I'm 59, and I took up running 2 years ago. So it's not like I've been doing this through high school. And I ran a 1 mile fun run at a health conference, and I labored to cross the finish line. But with the consistent eating of a plant-based diet, I've slimmed down and inflammation in my body has gone, and with exercises that helped alleviate a horrible plantar fasciitis. I'm very proud to say I ran my first and maybe only half marathon. So, power
Hey, Dr. Carney, I have a question. What causes inflammation in your system?
I am so glad you asked. He asked, what causes inflammation in the body? When we eat animal protein, we make a lot more arachidonic acid in our body, and that's an inflammatory acid. It inflames the brain, making insomnia, anxiety, depression worse. It inflames the joints. It inflames the blood vessels so that you don't get your good blood flow, and maybe the meniscus to the knee is wearing out, and the back discs are slipping because the back isn't getting its blood flow. Inflammation is the underlying cause of oxidative stress, which is a fancy scientific way of saying that's the premature aging process. When iron oxidizes, it rusts. And so we humans can think of ourselves as aging kind of like the rusting process. And we don't want to have the free radicals and the oxidative stress. Who can tell me what the antidote to the free radicals are that, the meat, the dairy, the eggs, the oil, that promotes in you? Because the more meat, dairy, eggs, and oil that you eat, the more inflamed that you are. Caffeine and alcohol also. So who can tell me what is the antidote to the free radicals? Karen. Antioxidants, yes. And what are antioxidants? They are compounds found in plants that keep the insect from destroying, overeating on the plant. So the antioxidants can be toxic to the insects. So can you think of a class of compounds that are in plants that right now there's a doctor who happened to used to work at my alma mater, Loma Linda, and he's selling this book or two that he's written, trying to make people think that plants are bad for you, and there's an antioxidant that he is sort of demonizing. Who knows the name of those antioxidants? Lectins. Oh, yeah. Very good, very good. So why are lectins not a problem? They're a problem to the insects. They sure are. And that's why the plant has has them in there, but they're not a problem to us because most lectins and like phytic acid in grains destroyed by cooking or sprouting. If you want to be raw, you don't have to be raw in the plant-based diet, but you should have raw foods in your diet every day. So when you eat the lectins, you're not going to have the problem that he says you will unless you have a food intolerance. And like Sarah told us today, the autoimmune diseases are on the rise, and the immune system is tasked with 4 main tasks. It wants to fight infection, fight cancer, and then there's the allergies, and then there's the autoimmune. And so autoimmune is on the rise. And I myself, you'd notice maybe that I bring my own little bowl of stuff, and I'm eating my own. I have so many food allergies, and I wish I didn't. But the inflammation in my body has gone down so much that I no longer am suffering that because I had food intolerances. But I'm still just eating plants. I just have to eat the plants that I'm not allergic to. And one that I didn't even test allergic for, but I found out why my thumbs were so painful that I couldn't turn a doorknob without wincing for 18 months, was lemon and lime and citrus. So I had to get off the citrus. And citrus and nightshades, I know it's a bummer. I used to use it all, 16 ounces of lemon and 16 ounces of lime every week. That's how much I loved it. But anyway, and so...
was there a test for that? How did you know?
I did an elimination diet. I didn't test for it. Actually, I did test. I tested allergic to oranges, but I did not test allergic to lime and lemon. But but I don't have my problem when I don't eat lime and lemon. When I eat lime and lemon, I do have my problem. So for me, that's test enough. Yeah. And so so some people are going to have food intolerances, and they're on the rise. But really, eating those antioxidants, which are found only in plants, that's what's going to prevent the inflammation in your body. So that was a long answer. Thank you for the question. I think it's a very great question. So in summary, what causes inflammation? Meat, dairy, eggs, oil, alcohol, caffeine, lack of sleep, those things, lack of exercise, those things are inflammatory. All right, kept you long enough. If there's nothing else, stop me now.
Thing.
Yes?
You're talking about taking stuff on the airplane, food in the airplane. Like I make a stew, like a bean stew with me, and I take it with me when I go on trips so I can have food. And one time, usually they let me go through. One time I couldn't get through. They said it was too much liquid in it. So I had some rice that my daughter cooked, and I just ate a little bit out of it, mixed the rice with it, went through again, and they said it was okay. When you bring the stews in, don't make it that liquidy.
Yes. Very good. Very good. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We'll see you next month, third Sunday of the month.